Can we jump right over to another shitbag? This is just the beginning from Rusty Trombone. Don't take my dad. Little girl pointing to guy with his the little girl's face you can see, but the grown man's face is digitized. So, well, I guess that makes sense because Rusty Trombone would rather see little girls. Yeah. Okay.
This is Gestapo-like behavior.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets.
With left-wing terror now on the rise.
Is it? It's on the rise, is it? Sorry, what the anti-Mormon dude driving into the front of the church the other day in the Trump shirt? That's the rise?
What is a terrorist? Whatever you need it to be.
Wow, that's so fucking profound. What is a terrorist? Whatever you need it to be. Yeah? Yeah? They don't even have to believe in anything.
Wing terror attacks and maybe terror attacks of any description are pretty, well, by definition, terrible. Let's have a look at some of the data around terror attacks. Here it is. Left and right wing US domestic terror attacks. Oh, wow, there's more. There's more of them? There are more left-wing ones? I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't understand the graph. I've never been good with graphs, baby. This study was shared by John Fetterman, the Democrat senator, isn't he? And it shows that left-wing terrorism has reached a 30-year high and criticised Democrats for using rhetoric such as Hitler and fascist and all that stuff. Let's have a look at that Fetterman post before discussing why is there a rise of terror on the left? Is this some sort of manipulation of figures?
Also, define left.
Or is it simply a presentation of facts? And who do you think are more violent, the left or the right? Period.
How about body count?
It's unchecked.
Hold on. Axios. Study left-wing terrorism climbs to 30-year high. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Axios. Left-wing terrorism climbs to 30-year high. Always like to go to the source, yeah? Left-wing terrorism outpaces far-right attacks for the first time in 30 years. That would be this part right here. Well, let's see if there's any yeah buts on this one. Left and right-wing domestic attacks. Okay, so left-wing is yellow, right-wing is gray. Boy, look at the rest of these. Boy, right wing's been through that. So the left wing part is still smaller than it's kind of ever been. Right wing's in power right now, so that might be why. My guess is that you got whatever at the beginning 2006 and 7 last years of the Bush administration. Then boy, there's a bunch of ratchets up. 2013 and 2018, a drop. Man, the 2020 they really brought it. This would be the yellow is left wing. This year, still less than 2020. Still less than a number of acts. Sorry, and this is, let's see what this, adapted from CSIS chart. Axios video, open that link in a new tab. Halfway through 2025, attacks by far-left extremists outpaced far-right violence for the first time in more than 3 decades, according to why it matters. America's domestic terrorism landscape has undergone a remarkable inversion. Far-right violence has historically been more frequent, more lethal, but plunged dramatically over the first 6 months of 2025. Yeah, because they considered themselves to have won, and a lot of it's being done through policy, I guess. Despite the uptick in high-profile attacks like assassination of Charlie Kirk, political violence remains rare and overwhelmingly opposed by most Americans. CSIS researchers compiled and analyzed a data set of 750 domestic attacks and plots from January 1st, 1994 to July 4th, 2025, categorizing them as right, left, jihadist, ethno-nationalist, and other. Data showed that left-wing extremists have carried out 41 attacks since 2016, compared with 152 from the far right over the same period. Left-wing violence has killed 13 people over the past decade, far fewer than the 112 deaths from right-wing attacks and 82 from jihadists. But at least 5 left-wing plots or attacks have already been recorded this year compared to just 1 right-wing attack. Trump responded to Kirk assassination by designating them as worried about the Daniel Bynum, the lead author of the CSIS study, warned Axios that the data should not be taken by the government as an excuse for a crackdown on legitimate organizations. Between lines, Trump analyzed the radicals, right, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Left-wing terrorism and political violence in the United States, what the data tells us. the issue. In recent years, the United States has been increased number of left wingers and introduction, tragic killings, and political commentary. There you go. Definitions. This analysis defines terrorism. Let's go move this down here and blow this up, shall we? As the deliberate use of or threat of premeditated violence. Okay, or threat of. So lots of threats, I suppose. Does that be the thing? By premeditated violence by non-state actors with the intent to achieve political goals by creating a broad psychological impact. Using this definition, CSIS researchers compiled and analyzed a data set of 750 terrorist attacks from January 1994 to 2025. I'm going to guess, hold on. Real quick. Let's see. So I guess they're not. They did it from January 1st, 1994 to July 4th, 2025. Oklahoma City had like 168 deaths. Pulse nightclub, like, okay. Left-wing terrorism incidents. Ooh, incidents. Look out. Are on the rise. Policing is noticeable over the decade. 1994, jaggedy. Left-wing terrorist attacks and plots, because they're singular acts more than anything. Left-wing terrorist attacks and plots as a percentage of all attacks. Terrorist attacks and plots in the United States by right, left, jihadist, ethno-nationalist, other. I would argue that the ethno-nationalists and the right overlap more often than they do not, right? I don't know if any... Are there white ethno-nationalists or... Well, I guess we'll go with black ethno-nationalists, the black Hebrew Israelites that shot the two Jews in the Bronx or something like that. They would technically not... it's part of the group that was Blacks for Trump. That guy anyways, so we'll see. The standard for what these are, left versus right, and plots in the United States. This is since 2023, there were 14, and then left there have been 5, and on the right there have been 1. So political violence is down overall right now, according to this chart. There have been 6 terrorist attacks, or things defined as terror, attacks and disrupted plots. That's also bigger. Disrupted plots versus attack among left-wing terrorist incidents. There have been 4 attacks and 1 thwarted. So there haven't been 5. There have been 4, and then 1 was allegedly thwarted. There were 2 thwarted. Biden did a better job thwarting than, I suppose, than Trump did. In this one, it's 2022. Okay, there you go. By contrast, jihadist incidents exhibit the opposite pattern. Disruptive plots are far more common than successful. That's because they're large events involving bombings and stuff, and most of the time they're talking about like shootings. What's causing the rise? Okay. Increase in left-wing incidents in the past decade is driven by plots and attacks directed at government and law enforcement targets. This would be Antifa firebombing buildings, by and large, and then the people like the Kirk shooter. The 41 left-wing incidents since 2016, anti-government extremism motivated 17, partisan extremism motivated the other 11. All left-wing attacks through July 4th, 2025 appear to be motivated by one of these ideologies, and the Kirk killing fits this pattern, although details about Kirk's alleged killer are still emerging. Partisan extremism includes attacks and plots against elected officials. So what are they gonna count? Fucking the 2 assassination attempts by disgruntled right-wingers. Let's see. Partisan extremism, let's see what it is. January 28, 2025. U.S. Capitol Police arrested Riley English, 24-year-old from Massachusetts, on the National Mall. After she approached officers, she was carrying a folding knife, 2 Molotov cocktails, and a lighter. According to prosecutors, English said she intended to kill senior U.S. officials, initially identifying Pete Hegseth, who she described as a Nazi, before shifting her focus to Mike Johnson, then to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. She also expressed a desire to attack the Conservative Heritage Foundation with a knife and 2 Molotov cocktails, obviously. major threat. In separate incident on March 30th, an assailant set fire to the headquarters of the Republican Party in New Mexico and Albuquerque, igniting the entrance late at night. Graffiti reading ICE equals KKK was spray painted on the wall near the site. Did they bust the person? So we don't know if it was like a false flag. Attacks such as English's plot to assassinate senior officials in the arson of their reflects the most severe effects of polarization. Really? A variety of, like, you're just not gonna go to all the Democratic offices that were attacked during the election last year, and during the midterms and during 2020. Okay. By 2020, most Republicans described Democrats as immoral, dishonest, and unintelligent, while most Democrats said the same of Republicans. Similarly, less than 4% of Americans express support for partisan violence, such as assault. 4% agree with this, and that's the people who would be doing this shit. Left-wing weaknesses. Despite the rise in the number of left-wing terrorist incidents, there exist several characteristics and conditions that limit the scale and sophistication of the attacks. The overall low lethality rates in left-wing attacks are probably attributable to several factors, including target selection, target scope, tactical methods employed, low levels of perpetual skill, and counterterrorism measures. The first, left-wing perpetrators typically select targets that limit opportunities for mass killing. They're so soy in their attacks. In the past decade, left-wing attacks most commonly occurred at government or law enforcement facilities. These locations are often protected by physical fortifications and security personnel, making it more difficult for perpetrators to kill targets during an attack. For example, July 2025 attack on ICE's Prairie Land Detention Facility. One police officer was wounded before additional law enforcement forced the attackers to flee. The attackers' choice of hardened federal compound with security personnel on the site contributed to the attack's failure to kill any victims. This contrasts with jihadist attacks, which commonly target large crowds. Second, left-wing violence is often narrowly directed at specific individuals rather than the indiscriminate killing of civilians. That's where the right wing really does have it nailed down, don't they? Just killing a bunch of people to make their point, shooting up the office of the FBI in Cincinnati because you don't like a lawfully obtained warrant in Florida. Most notably, 10 of the 13 victim fatalities from left-wing attacks in the past decade have been police officers ambushed in public areas by attackers using firearms. This pattern underscores 10 of the 13 victim fatalities from left-wing attacks. Again, what determines these people are left-wing? I gotta say, because I'll go with you that people who perceive themselves as Antifa or communists would be qualified, but anarchists are not. They might as well be libertarians. Let's see. Fourth, left-wing perpetrators often lack the weapons and tactical training to maximize their impact. For example, Quintez Brown, a 21-year-old black nationalist, entered the Louisville campaign office of Democratic mayoral candidate Craig Greenberg with a 9mm pistol. Prosecutors argued that Brown saw himself as an equalizer, striking at the symbol of gentrification and oppression. Sorry, so this left-wing attack was on a Democrat? Sorry, your example of one of the rises in left-wing violence is a guy shooting up a Democrat's office? Fifth, unlike many foreign terrorist organizations with centralized leadership, funding, and training, left-wing terrorists, like most terrorist actors in the United States, operate as loosely affiliated networks or as lone individuals, limiting their ability to train and plan, blah, blah, blah. Why have jihadists and right-wing incidents fallen? Explaining non-events, such as why attacks from rival ideological groups and individuals have fallen, is always difficult. For jihadists, the main terrorist group in recent years, Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, are far weaker than they were. Sudden decline in right-wing terrorism is both striking and harder to explain. From 1994 to 2000, there was an average of 21 right-wing attacks or plots each year. In the following decade, right-wing incidents fell to an average of 7 annually from 2011 to 2024. Also, I guess you guys are counting some of these left-wingers as right. Aggressive law enforcement efforts under former President Biden hurt the right-wing extremist movement. While the January 6th investigation is particularly causing disarray, the government brought charges against 1,000 individuals. Trump's election appears to have changed the threat, although it is impossible to definitely prove the link between the policies of and positions championed in Trump's second term and the decline in right-wing terrorism, because it's just moved inside the House, I think. Is that the idea? Most notably, the administration has aggressively targeted immigrants with high-profile efforts to identify, detain, and deport them. Anti-immigrant sentiment is one of the most important violent extremist motivations in recent years. So basically, give the white supremacists what they want, and they won't attack anywhere.
Extreme rhetoric, like labels as Hitler or fascist, will foment more extreme outcomes. Political violence is always wrong.
No, it didn't. There's 6 incidents, 4 carried out, 1 planned, and that's fewer than there were a couple of years ago. It's just in comparison to the volume of right-wing violence, because now you can just get a job as an ICE agent and punt a fucking supporter or a reporter who's just trying to take pictures.
No exceptions. We must all turn the temperature down. Excellent bit of online rhetoric from John Fetterman. How infrequently we see anyone genuinely attempting not to score points, but to create better outcomes for everyone.
Fuck you. Speak for yourself. What? And by the way, feel free right after this to just jump into saying they tried to kill Charlie Kirk and them again. Just use broad fucking plural pronouns for a shooter to lay that like mysterious level of guilt across an entire swath of people.
Regardless of their political position. Surely we should all be applauding that. Let me know in the comments and chat if you agree. Let's have a look at the kind of...
Is he on an IV right now?
...rhetoric that leads perhaps to the rise of terror.
Every single...
He's on an IV right now. I'm assuming it might be intramuscular, or could be just subcutaneous.
Comments and chat if you agree. Let's have a look at the kind of rhetoric...
But as he gestures, it's moving.
...that leads perhaps to the rise of terror.
Every single ICE agent who's engaged in this aggressive overreach, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified. This is not the 1930s.
Secret police who are masked, who are intimidating.
You think the music is really necessary? Is that what? So you got the jump cuts and stuff, and we're supposed to assume that there was no language softening in between. You're just trying to tighten this up to make it look like all they do is call people Nazis, and there's a direct line between calling somebody a Nazi and somebody shooting somebody else.
Who are scaring people. These Gestapo-like tactics.
This is Gestapo-like behavior.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets.
When you compare the old films of the Gestapo grabbing people off the streets of Poland, it does look like a Gestapo operation.
You posted on social media that, quote, ICE is acting like a terrorist force. ICE agents.
Yeah, this is the use of an analogy, not ICE are Gestapo. Trump's Gestapo is snatching people off their, like, the like part is a statement of like, hey, it looks like we're going in that direction. That's not good. It's very different than go, you know, wait, hold on. Was it G. Gordon Liddy? Yeah, there was a quote from, let's see, about, yeah. Let's see. And what happens when the brutal are, yeah, here you go. Yeah. Dressed to kill. Federal agents' militaristic uniforms enter the fray. A new villain has emerged at the time for the Middle East terrorists, or even a human being. No, the fiend of the hour is a uniform. We're talking about, said radio person G. Gordon Liddy on one of his recent shows, is what happened when the brutal thugs of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in their wannabe ninja suits went to serve the warrant against the fundamentalist Christians down there in Waco. Jackbooted government thugs, federal agents wearing Nazi bucket helmets and black stormtrooper uniforms to attack law-abiding citizens. I think this is also the you know, on his show where he suggested shooting them in the dome. Sorry, 1 second.
They are coming and kidnapping and disappearing people on the streets of the United States.
But this terror campaign of having masked people rolling up in vans, but we also have to talk about the agents themselves that are carrying this out. If you have any decency, quit now. Because just doing what you were told has been the justification for some of the worst horrors and crimes against humanity.
Incendiary rhetoric, there's no doubt about it. Let's have a look at this from The Independent. For the first time in decades, the landscape of domestic terrorism in the US has shifted, with incidents linked to far-left extremists now outpacing those attributed to...
Oh, my fucking God. 5! Country of 340 million people. 5. The reason why they're outpacing the terror from the right is because the president is getting to implement the terrorist tactics that the right has been screaming for. Namely, masked people snatching people off the fucking street. Harassing immigrants. I mean, he's literally putting these assholes out of a job. And even still, 5. 4 of them were, quote, left-wing. And again, debatable. Certainly not Democrat voters. And then 1 has been a right-wing activist. I don't even know what they're qualifying it as. And again, this standard for how long? Up till when? January? When did they stop? I gotta look at this again. Definitions. Yeah, they stopped at July 4th. Because that would fuck up the entire thing. Let's see. Right-wing violence, U.S. 2025 incidents. I just want to see the number of them. Or what they actually call it. Let's see. Violence is rising overall. Patterns, yada yada. Hard to count. There's another reason hard to count for characterized for U.S. focus on prosecuting criminal acts rather than formally designating organizations terrorists, relying on existing statutes such as conspiracy, weapons violations, RICO provisions, etc. Rhetoric is an event, you know. Yeah, I'm trying to find, like, let's see. What we go with. The heck? I'm gonna look this up. Well, let's see what they say, and then I'll look it up.
Far-right extremists. The assassination of Charlie Kirk has thrown a spotlight on America's political violence problem, with commentators on both sides accusing the other of turning up the dial. New research from the Center for Strategic and International Studies warns that a stark imbalance has emerged in the last decade, with domestic terror incidents perpetrated by those linked to the left now on course to exceed any level seen in the previous 30 years.
Yeah, but by contrast, again, to the number committed by the right who are currently in power, which is when it always dips. And again, 5.
Meanwhile, right-wing violence has sharply declined.
Oh, has it? No, it's just gone indoors.
Researchers said their analysis revealed that indeed left-wing violence has risen in the last 10 years, particularly since Donald Trump's rise to political prominence in 2016. The research team examined 750 domestic terror incidents in the US between 94 and 25. The studies used the following data.
Yeah, and they didn't count Oklahoma City, which was in 95. For real, like 168 people died. They're not going to put that I think that qualifies. Chat room, do you think that Oklahoma City qualifies? Or is that just a single blip? Meanwhile, this lady with 2 Molotov cocktails and a buck knife showing up saying she wants to kill Scott Bessett and talking to park rangers. That's basically, it's a coin flip, isn't it? 1-to-1. One guy parks a truck in front of a federal building, kills a bunch of toddlers in preschool on the first floor. And 168 people total, and a lady with a fucking shopping bag with a knife and 2 Molotov cocktails in it who thinks she's going to bring down the government by herself. That's basically the same, yeah?
definition of terrorism. The deliberate use or threat of premeditated
we
impact.
read that
Down the rhetoric. I had a great conversation with Frank Turek, the pastor who was present with Charlie Kirk at his assassination, and I really tried my best to have an open conversation with him about the exploitation by the left and right of Charlie Kirk's death. What I think anyone can agree
The exploitation of his death.
on is that the solutions that we must reach now are spiritual, because spirituality indicates a set of values that are transcendent of political categories that seem to lead to divisiveness, whereas spirituality, as opposed to...
Yeah, that's true. 'Cause spirituality has never led to any divisiveness. I mean, ever since and now that we've got eternal peace in the Middle East, I think you can... Fuck, this is lazy.